podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Welcome to the Cardiff Central Podcast.
Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Rap podcast from Cardiff Central. This is the Cardiff Central podcast, and I think it's episode 4 or 5 now, Aled?
I think we're on episode 4 now. I might be wrong.
I'm trying to rush us on, yeah? I'm trying to move us on as we go along. You're hearing my voice at the start because Aled is a bit rough this morning. The lurgy that has been passing around the various Rap podcasts has reached you, Aled. I feel like I've passed it on virtually to you somehow.
Yeah, I hope not. I think I might have caught it from my dad. He came up to watch the semi-finals, or possibly from my sister. It's just generally back to school bug kind of thing. I think it's just always this time of year. It kind of goes around in circles and lasts till about December, I think, because you kind of get fresh as flu in late September, and that becomes mid-October, and before you know it, people are just sneezing all the way to Christmas. So hopefully I'll be hot on the mute and you won't be able to hear me coughing or anything. But it's pretty stinking head cold. So hopefully I get rid of it soon.
Yeah, I've had one. I then thought I'd passed it on to my partner, who's had it, is just about on the mend. And now I feel like I've got a tickle in the back of my throat, which makes me think I didn't pass on the original bug to her, but immediately caught another one off her, which is always nice there. Always a nice moment. But we'll head colds apart. How are you doing and what have you been up to over the past, 7 days?
Not much really. So I caught this pretty much yesterday. It's really struck quite fast and hard. But apart from that, really just watching the rugby at the weekend. And last week was quite busy at work, so just kind of late finishes and just kind of going from there. So nothing too exciting, unfortunately. Hopefully this will shift soon. I can have a bit more of an interesting week. How about yourself?
Yeah, likewise, watching the rugby weekend was pretty much the main thing, and the football, great result for Wales in that. Get that in early before we move on to all the rugby chat. Apart from that, I'm trying to think of something interesting I've done over the last 7 days, and I'm really struggling to think of anything. So that's basically sport and illness. It seems to be the way I'm living at the moment. And
I did wonder how long it would take to get to that, because I'm not outside of rugby. I'm not that interesting in that I don't have those hobbies or stuff going on. So I thought eventually we're going to end up where neither of us are actually doing anything in the week, and we've episode 4. We've hit that. So that's good to know.
Yeah. Because my partner was ill, I had to watch High School Musical. That was probably the highlight, actually, I should clarify. Let's start that again. The low point of the week. I had forgotten how bad that film is. I think a 7-year-old me thought it was slightly better than it is.
I can't say I've ever seen them. Not my cup of tea. I think the closest I've seen is probably Pitch Perfect, which is similar-ish, I guess.
Yes.
Would you say?
Pitch Perfect's a better film, and I feel like we might be losing an audience here. So let's move on from crappy and slightly better musicals, but to rugby. And I suppose the big talking point that everyone's going to be talking about is, especially Welsh podcasts, is Wales and the weekend. Your feelings, Aled, before I start mine, because most people are trying to put it in a positive light and saying, no one thought we'd get through the group stages. We did that. We got to the quarterfinals. But for me, it's a massive chance missed, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I think in the first half, we didn't really capitalise on a lot of the chances we had. When we went 10-0 up, I thought, this is pretty much how I was expecting the game to go. And towards the end of the first half, there was just they went 10-3, which was fine, but then they went 10-6, and then that was half-time, and we let them creep in a bit. And in the second half, I didn't feel like we really fired a shot, apart from Thomas Williams. And when he scored that try, I thought, this is kind of the story I was expecting of, we're going to get back into it, and we're going to kick a lot and control the game. And yeah, it just kind of didn't really happen. I think you look at the draw, even though 12 months ago we'd have said finishing second would be grand, and actually I think it's one of those expectations surged a bit because of how well we did in the pool stage. So I think beforehand, maybe people were not expecting to, or didn't really know what to expect. We did well in the pool stage, and suddenly everyone's gone, "Oh, well, we're back to normal." And then say normal, do you know what I mean? But given those kind of fixtures, you'd be eyeing up a semi-final. And then when that's not happened, I think it's kind of deflated, and we've reverted to type of being quite negative about it. Yeah, mixed bag really. It's hard to be really positive about it. But I thought Argentina played really well, to their credit. In the second half, especially, they did what I hope that the teams I'm supporting do, is just try and keep it within a score. And then every time we went slightly ahead, they went slightly ahead again, and just kept the scoreboard ticking over, and then took their chance at the end and sealed it off. So yeah, I'm normally trying to frame things positively, but I think it's enough to leave with some face, but not really. It's quite difficult to say what we've actually managed, I guess.
I'm already smiling because you've given the positive and set me up for the negative, and I am gonna fulfill that. Maybe I've built it up in my head too much, but I had said before the tournament I fancied Wales to get to a semi-final of this World Cup, and that was, yes, partly to the draw. And we can talk for hours and hours and hours about the draw, and we all know it wasn't equal. There's no need to talk about it anymore. But I feel Wales underachieved. I really do. And maybe I'd built it up in my head slightly. Maybe I'd ignored the past 12 months and gone on sort of 4 years ago and this young crop and how excited I am about some of these players, the Jack Morgans, your other players, George North playing as well as he is, your Lewis Rees-Salmons, etc., etc. I really thought that semi-final, it was a semi-final place for the taking, and I feel Wales fluffed their lines. They will be incredibly disappointed. I think we saw that in the final whistle, and I think that not only displays. I'm actually quite positive that they're as disappointed as they are, because that shows that they want to get to that semi-final. They think they should have been in that semi-final, as opposed to what was Pivac saying 12 months ago, something along the lines of, if Wales get to a quarter-final or semi-final, we'd be happy. Well, those bunch of players weren't happy to just get to a quarter-final, and that's a positive thing. You saw Derry Lake post-match crying his eyes out. You saw Jack Morgan looking devastated as well. Those are young players who are going to be leaders of the team for the future, and I think this will stand them in good stead. Likewise, Sam Costello, absolutely gutted for him that moment is going to be the one that's going to be clipped up, that's going to be shown as, that's going to be shown as the Imhoff try against Ireland in 2015. If you're thinking about it as in moments that ended the game, that is the moment, that interception. But there's been so many positives from this, but I feel like that game wasn't a fair reflection of where this team is in some ways, but in other ways it was. I think it showed the inexperience of that bench, the fact that some players came on and didn't make enough of an impact off the bench. Yes, there were refereeing decisions here, there, and everywhere, as there have been in all four quarterfinals that people have debated. And maybe, I don't know whether Alad's got a stronger feeling on this. Personally, I felt Guido Petty got off ridiculously lightly. But to blame it on refereeing decisions would be wrong. Wales lost that game purely because of their own discipline and their own mistakes, rather than anything that a referee may have not penalised or penalised incorrectly.
Yeah, I mean, I've not tried not to focus too much on the refereeing, just because it can go either way. I think I understood the logic of why it wasn't a card for Tompkins' head contact. I'm not sure I agree with it, because I think if you entered a ruck, any other ruck like that, it probably would be a card. So the fact that he's told him to release the tackle doesn't really change that for me. But actually, I don't think that would really change necessarily the outcome of the game. It was quite a big swing moment in the game. But yeah, I mean, you don't know. And a couple of other matches, as decisions could go either way, as there always will be. But I think Argentina just played better, and I think that's what you kind of have to focus on by the end of the game.
Yeah, Aled, we've just been joined by our special guest this week. I hadn't alluded to him at the start of the pod. It's a bit of a surprise, but Macauley Cook has joined us midway through Wales chat. Macauley Cook, who is current Pontypridd captain, obviously ex-Cardiff rugby player. Macauley, did you catch much of the rugby on the weekend?
All right, how's it going? Yeah, I did actually. They were pretty good games, weren't they? It's going to be hard to live up to it this weekend with the semis, I think, because some of the games were brilliant. But I'm a little bit gutted with the Wales game, and obviously I really wanted Ireland and France to win as well. But yeah, what a weekend of rugby.
Yeah, exactly our thoughts. We were just talking about Wales as possibly a missed opportunity, but there's three other brilliant semi-finals as well. What was your high point of the weekend or highlight?
Yeah, I was obviously disappointed with the Wales game. I think everyone thought we were quite favourites, really, didn't they? So kind of didn't turn out that way. But yeah, I thought the first half of the French game against South Africa, I thought they were unbelievable. France, the speed of ball was just something I'd never seen. Probably the best half of rugby that I'd possibly have ever watched in my life. I thought they were incredible, really, and just can't believe they didn't win. South Africa were obviously excellent as well, and had a game plan, didn't they? They were doing like things that was really bizarre, but seemed to pay off, like taking scrums off marks in their own 22 and stuff like that. So yeah, but it was a great game. Obviously, the second half sort of was a bit more tense then, not quite as high tempo, but a great game to watch. I really enjoyed.
Yeah, I was going to say, Ponty are known for their forwards work. Are you suggesting to the coach in midweek going, hey, how about we do this? Like, how would we do this plan, taking scrums from our own marks in our own 22 and trying to get a penalty from it?
Yeah, definitely. If I suggested that on the team meeting, I think I get laughed out, really. But yeah.
But yeah, Aled, what did you make of those two games as well? Then, particularly Ireland, New Zealand, France, South Africa. I assume your favourite of the World Cup is coming from those two.
Yeah, well, as we said last week, that it could have gone, I think, either way in both games. They're both really close. I think I picked New Zealand and France, just had a feeling that would be the final. You said Ireland and South Africa. So between us, we've got halfway there. Yeah, as Macauley said, I think that first half against France and South Africa is probably the best 40 minutes of Test rugby I've ever seen. That's just incredibly good. And the New Zealand Ireland game was also ridiculous. I think we've seen two of the best rugby matches I've ever seen within the space of 24 hours. The saving grace about the Welsh loss is, playing against the All Blacks in the semi-final, I don't think would have been too appealing necessarily, especially carrying some injuries. I don't know what you both think about that. I had a feeling that they just turn up, and when the All Blacks turn up, they really click, and they were just out of this world, really. So yeah, I don't know how you think we'd fare if we had got past Argentina.
Not great. I don't know. I think the semi-final was as far as we were ever going to go. I don't know if Corley disagrees, but I'd have been stunned if we hadn't beaten them in 70 years. Why? Okay, someone might have said round number, so therefore we're going to win this time. But apart from that, I can't see any other reason why we'd have beaten New Zealand. And yeah, I'm going to stick to South Africa to win the tournament. I still think that South African side. I actually said South Africa by a point to someone else the other day, and I was quite chuffed that came about. So, yeah, my South Africa just looks so strong. That New Zealand side were brilliant, had some brilliant performances by the likes of Sam Cane and Ali Survey, and I'd be really surprised if they back it up this week. I think they'll get through past Argentina, but I don't think they'll play as well as they did last week. I think that was as well as New Zealand could play almost, and Ireland just weren't at it. That was my judgment. I don't know if Macauley feels any differently.
Yeah, I agree. My thoughts on it, having sort of reflected on the Wales Argentina game. Obviously, a lot of my mates, a few of my mates playing in the game, so really want them to win. But I just think it would have just prolonged the agony of losing again next week, because I think that was definitely, you're always in with a chance in a one-off game in the semi-final, but I think that was definitely as far as we were going to get, really, looking at the sides left in the tournament. So, yeah, it was probably just prolonging the pain if we'd have just waited another week and then, got knocked out next week anyway. But yeah, I suppose you'd have still had the third place playoff to play then as well, which would have been interesting. It would have been obviously a really good achievement to finish at third in the world. If we could have won that, if we had lost the semi-final. But yeah, it was always going to be a difficult task, and sort of would have prolonged the pain really.
I was just wondering, you mentioned mates there in the squad. What are they doing now? Are they having a week's off holiday? Are they flying back home? Do you know what their whereabouts are
Yeah,
for the next week?
apparently, yeah, they've only got 2 weeks off. I've heard. Speaking to a couple of the boys, so not too long of a break for them really. I know they've been in camp for a long time, so it's been a pretty tough summer for them. I know they obviously had a lot of time off. Well, not a lot of time off, but the same time off as the regional players as well after last season, before they started in the Welsh camp. But obviously, with the intensity of like the training camps and stuff, I think they went to Turkey, didn't they, and then Switzerland and stuff. So they've had a long time. So to only get 2 weeks off is obviously going to be tough, but that's the life of a professional sportsman, I suppose, and they're just straight back into the grind of the season. I know the boys will be straight back in the mix, and then obviously for the Six Nations, then won't be too far away either. So yeah, it's a difficult time really. I think they'll be definitely needing a break at the end of this season, just because the amount of work they've got through. But yeah, only 2 weeks off, I've heard.
Yeah, it's mad, really, because I've seen some of the, Bath. Finn Russell made his debut for Bath on the weekend. I was like, good grief, you get knocked out the World Cup and you're straight back on the horse. And so for some players, that's what they want, isn't it? You want to get back out there and not right some wrongs, but you know what I mean, as in show what you can do on a different front.
Yeah, definitely. To put the disappointment behind you. The good thing about sport is obviously you normally get a chance the week after to put things right and to feel a bit better and right the wrongs, if you like. So yeah, I think back on the horse for most of the boys, and also they would have worked hard for the fitness and match fitness during the World Cup, so they won't want to lose that. So they won't want too long off really either. But yeah, it would be nice to have. I'd imagine that they'll try and get away or see family now for the next week or two, and then straight back into training then.
Well, the main reason we've got you on, obviously, is, well, two main reasons. One is Pontypridd, and two is Cardiff, because it's just before the start of the URC. Let's start with Ponty. Do you want to talk about how the season's gone for you so far? You're captain of that side.
Yeah, really enjoying. Not club captain, but I was captain over the weekend because our captain was on the bench on Saturday. So yeah, massive honour, to captain Pontypridd. I sort of grew up in. I'm old enough to remember how big the club rugby in Wales and how big Pontypridd was really, alongside the likes of Cardiff, RFC, and so on. So. Yeah, a massive honour for me to captain the club. My first time captaining Ponty, really. So it was a big honour. But yeah, we're really enjoying. I think we worked hard pre-season. It's a little bit different, stepping back from pro rugby and then going into semi-pro. Took a little time for me personally to adjust. Really, obviously having to find your own time to do your weights and your other stuff alongside, and then just the 2 nights a week, 2 sessions a week training. You have to get a lot of that work done in those 2 sessions. So a little bit of adjusting for me, but yeah, I've been enjoying myself so far. We had a tough start. We played, we drew against Cardiff and then lost the next 3, but albeit against top opposition. We played Merthyr in the Cup, Ebervale, Llandovery, who are all top sides in the league. So, but now we've started to get on a little bit of a roll now. We beat Neath. We got over the line against Neath away in some bad conditions, and we needed that win big time, really. And then obviously building on that, then on Saturday against Bridgend with a bonus point was excellent. So 2 in a row now. We got Pontypool next week, which is obviously going to be tough. They're newly promoted, and they've obviously been waiting a while to get in the league and give it a go. So they'll be chomping at the bit, if you like, to put a performance in. So a tough game there, but we're hoping we can keep the ball rolling now and get 3 wins on the bounce.
Yeah, that run of fixtures sort of shows you the swings and roundabouts of the league, isn't it? You've got those 4 top tier sides, then you've got 2 newly promoted sides plus Bridgend. Is it hard to get continuity then? You all know where you are really, because of those 4 starting games where you've taken 1 draw and 3 losses. It must be really the squad morale must have been really low.
Yeah, it is difficult. That's the thing about losing. It's almost like a habit as well, isn't it? And winning the same. So once you're in that sort of rut, it's kind of hard to get out of as well. So it is difficult. We were a bit down on ourselves a little bit, but we knew we were getting closer. We knew the teams were tough, and there was going to be well, there's no easy games, but an easier run of games on paper, if you like. So we could start to put things right. But we were getting better in every game, although we weren't getting the results we wanted. We were improving in certain areas. So we were always confident we could get a run of games and a run of wins, which seemed to be happening now, really. We also had a lot of injuries as well. The first few games, tough games, obviously took their toll, especially in the back row. We lost a few key players, really, in the back row. So that was also difficult. But a few boys back from injury now, which is good. A few long-term injuries, but a few boys coming back, which is a big boost for us, really. So, yeah, that's a positive as well. So we struggled with a few injuries, but we're sort of coming out the other end of that now, which is good.
Yeah, well, have you reevaluated what your goals are? Or I can't remember what the aims were at the start of the season. I do remember speaking to Gareth about this is where you want to get at the end of the season, and he was a bit lukewarm about it. He didn't want to give away too much, I suppose. But towards the end of the season, what have you thought that far? Are you thinking 2 weeks' time? Are you thinking 3 weeks' time? We want to be at this point.
Yeah, it's a tough one to gauge, really. And it's my first season back in Wales for a little while in the Premiership, so obviously I didn't know a great deal. Although I watched a few games last season, didn't know a great deal about what was going on, really, who was on form, etc. But yeah, it's hard to really gauge. We'd recruited really well over the summer, so I think things people were sort of having high expectations of us, really. But things do take time to gel. You take time to gel and gauge each other and know how each other plays and work on things in training. So it has taken a little bit longer than we thought, really, with the boys coming in and sort of it weren't going to happen overnight and transform it. Because I know they had not a great season last year, Ponty, really. I think they finished near the bottom last year, so it was always going to take time. But yeah, it was a difficult one to evaluate whether we were, everyone wants to say, we're going to win the league or whatever, but you got to be realistic about it as well. But yeah, I definitely think we got to be ambitious and start looking up the league, and look for that top four and try and chase those top teams down, because we're definitely capable of doing that. Looking around the squad we got a really good talented squad. We got some experience in the ranks as well. Like boys have been around the club a long time as well. Like Parker, Morgan Bazanko's, boys like that who have been around Pontypridd a lot, and also myself, Gary, and boys like that with a bit of experience. But we got some youngsters as well that are really showing some talent. Especially backs wise, we're looking dangerous behind when we get it right. But it's about that sort of learning a little bit as well, and knowing when to sort of go for it and when to hold on to the ball. Sometimes that little bit of decision making, which comes with experience sometimes. But we are a real dangerous side, and I think we're quite good to watch actually at the moment, which is good. Playing some nice stuff. So it is tough to evaluate, but I think we got to be ambitious, and we got to look up the league. And it is a cliche, and it is boring when you say it, but you got to take the game at a time. But it's almost true. You can't look too far ahead. You don't know what's going to happen injuries wise, whether we stay fit, etc., etc. So it is difficult. But I think if we can get this win on Saturday now against Pontypridd, we'll definitely be in a good position then to kick on. Confidence wise as well. I think that's massive for us. I think young squad. I think because we've got the 3 wins, then I think it'll be a big confidence boost going forward for us.
You mentioned a lot of those youngsters there. Pontypridd has been a rich breeding ground for Cardiff Rugby over the last few seasons. The front row boys, Jared, obviously. Who are the players that we should be looking out for in a couple of years' time to possibly break into the regional ranks? Obviously, you don't want to lose them from Pontypridd, I suppose, but for Cardiff fans looking forward.
Yeah, that's a very good question actually. Yeah, it's a little bit different to when I first was playing when I was in the academy and stuff. They'd loan out a lot of boys to these teams, but we don't seem to have as many academy boys down playing anymore from Cardiff. It's a lot of boys that are just contracted to Ponty and just with Ponty week in week out really. But yeah, a lot of young talent. the back line, boys who have come from local clubs as well, like Macauley, like Liam Lloyd, boys like that as well, Harvey, Nash, etc. Obviously, he was with the Ospreys last year, but young boys who are big associations with local clubs have stepped up as well. Have had their chance. Like Macauley Rowley, for example, played Astrid last year. Astrid Rhondda played really well. Have stepped up to Ponty and, hasn't put a foot wrong. He's been excellent so far this season. And Liam Lloyd, the same. Boys like that. There's loads of boys I can name, really, in similar boat. So, yeah, boys like that would be a surprise, if they sort of had a good season or two, could really kick on, because they definitely got the talent. But, yeah, it's hard to put your finger on, really. But, yeah, there's a lot of young talent there, really, and it's exciting.
And you mentioned you played those 4 big sides, so put pressure on you there. Which of those impressed you the most? Cardiff, Llandovery, Merthyr, Vale, those were, almost top 4 last season. Who do you see making up that top 4 come the end of the season, obviously alongside Pontypridd?
Yeah, obviously Ponty. I thought, obviously, playing against them all, I thought Llandovery were the strongest to play against. They were really dangerous. They played like sort of high tempo. They were, as soon as they got in behind, they'd offload and they seemed to score. So they were quite clinical. So I thought they were the team really that I was most impressed with, having played against them, and it was obviously on Sardis as well that they beat us. So Vale were obviously good away from home, and they're always good at home. So that was a difficult challenge as well. They kicked really well against us. They pinned us back, So it was they were decent as well. So yeah, that would be the one really. Llandovery, I'd say, were probably the strongest.
You heard it here first. Llandovery to go back to back. Alan, I was just wondering, do you have anything else you wanted to ask on sort of Ponty wise, or do you want to move on to Cardiff based?
So I just had the one question really. So this is the kind of last season in the Premiership in its current guise before this sort of elite development league competition. The EDC comes in. I was just wondering what's the kind of the vibe or the feeling at your level of is this going to be a positive thing? Has it got issues? That kind of is it a step in the right direction, or is it just kind of shuffling deck chairs around?
Yeah, it's a tough one, really. In all honesty, I'm not 100%. I know they're obviously shortening the league, and they to 8 teams, I think it is it?
I think it's 8 to 10. Yeah,
8 to 10. Yeah, I'm not sure how the structure is going to work, because I've heard that each region will get a guaranteed side in that league. Then, so there's actually not that many places up for grabs. Then, when you think about it, if each region have a team already in the league, no matter what, and then it's obviously a big fight for the last 4 to 6 sort of places, really. So, yeah, it's been talked about amongst the dressing room a fair bit, amongst the boys and stuff. But yeah, not a great deal from the coaches and stuff, really. Like you say, we just gotta do as best we can in the league and just hope we can make that sort of league. I mean, it would be disappointed if Pontypridd didn't make that cut, because obviously it's a massive club with a big history. But yeah, you've got to earn that as well. So we are obviously taking it game by game. But yeah, that is in the back of your heads as well. You do obviously want to play in that top league, and I'm not sure what it'll mean as an entertainment, really. I'm quite enjoying this. I know it's a big league this year. Some teams, Pontypool, obviously come up, but I think it's definitely good the way it is at the moment. So I'm not sure why they're actually changing it too much and tinkering with it too much, but. Yeah, I'm a big fan of relegation. I am as well. I think it makes things more exciting, relegation and promotion. That's why football seem to have it right, don't they? I know it's different in football. There's a lot more teams, a lot more money, etc. But I like the thought of relegation promotion. I think it gives teams things to play for then, doesn't it? It's not just a dead rubber towards the bottom of the league. So that's a positive as well. So. Yeah, we just got to focus on take blocks of games at a time, and hopefully we can qualify for that elite league or whatever it's going to be.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that relegation, because I spoke to a few of the WIU on that topic, why they haven't included relegation. Their reasoning was if there's no relegation, if there was a relegation, teams would be less likely to play their inexperienced players because they need to win games. And the whole point of this EDC is to promote young talent, academy talent, have those players who maybe slip the net between 22 and 25, have them have an opportunity to play. I suppose you know yourself, you're, I don't want to say an older statesman, but you're not 25. Let's put it that way. For you, looking at that, what does that say to you? Are you excited to bring these players forward, or is that a little bit, I don't know, threatening your livelihood in a way? I don't want to put too much of a dampen on it, but is that something that's crossed your mind at all?
No, definitely. As I think, definitely in the professional game, as you get older, you start thinking about the younger players coming to take your position, if you like, in your job. Yeah, it is. It's cutthroat at the end of the day. Is sport, isn't it? So, yeah. Obviously, it's about winning games as well, isn't it? Really. So it's about that balance. I mean, a lot of sponsors and stuff invest a fair bit of money into these clubs. Still, even in this climate, it's a lot of money at stake. So I think clubs definitely want to win more so. But yeah, I think definitely important to breed youngsters through as well. But again, they have to earn their stripes as well. If they're good enough, if they're playing well enough, then I'm sure they'll get games as well. So I think it's about that balance, really. Winning games is obviously important at this level, but also bleeding youngsters through is also important for the future as well. So it's about getting that balance, and that's a difficult task sometimes, isn't it? Getting the right balance with that.
Just before we move to Cardiff, it would be remiss of me not to mention Jersey, because obviously you were there last season. You moved prior to the announcements happening. It's probably a bit of an unfair question to know, but did you know what was about to happen? And also then, as a result of, what has been reaction to what's happened, and what give an insight into some of those boys' heads at the moment?
Yeah, I've been, all my mates and stuff has been on to me a lot, saying that, that I knew what was going to happen and I jumped ship at the right time. And I've been getting all the banter saying I took all the money and then left and all this. But yeah, no, not at all. I didn't know anything was happening. I hadn't really heard any inkling that anything was happening of that sort, really. We were always reassured last season. We obviously had a good season last season, winning the championship, and the chairman and the director of rugby and the coaches and stuff were always reassuring us that financially we were in a good place. We'd have meetings now and again to explain different things, and it all seemed positive, really. But I think what I've heard, that what really happened was, over the summer, after winning the championship and not getting promoted to the Premiership because of criteria, not hitting the 10,000 seats minimum stadium, etc., etc. I think a few of the sponsors have actually pulled out because of that, really, because they sort of hit the ceiling. That's what I've gathered from what I've heard, really, that some of the sponsors have thought, well, what's the point in us ploughing money in if that's all they can do, sort of thing, and they're not going to get promoted anytime soon. So you can kind of see it from that sponsor's point of view as well, obviously, and the climate as well haven't helped. I think rugby in general is struggling at the moment, and at club level. So yeah, but I heard the boys. There was murmurs in the summer during pre-season from the boys, I think, that the club was sort of half struggling a little bit, and then the boys in August got paid late by like a week or so. So they put that down to an admin error, which never looks good, really, does it? So I think the boys sort of were panicking a little bit after they got paid late that 1 month, and then it just sort of happened in September. Then just got brought in. I think they were playing Cornish Pirates, and they were supposed to be flying or meeting in the airport at like 8 o'clock, and they got told to go in for a meeting at 7 a.m. and then they got told by the chairman and a load of lawyers were in the meeting as well that they'd ceased trading. So yeah, I'm just absolutely devastated, to be honest, for my mates. Some of my best mates are there, still there now. I made some great friends over my 3 years, and I'm just absolutely gutted. Gutted for the coaches as well. There's a good group of coaches and staff. Just devastated. We built something special. Over my 3 years, we just got better and better every year, and it's kept the core group of boys together, and obviously won the championship last year, which was unreal. my best season as a rugby player, really. My most enjoyable season, playing it, winning every week and winning that league with the boys, with a bunch of boys that were outstanding, So I just feel for all my mates more than anything, losing their jobs, all obviously scampering for different contracts and stuff now. But, the time of year it is, yourself that it's difficult. Teams have obviously filled their rosters, if you like, filled their squads for the season. So there's not a lot of room and not a lot of contracts floating around at the moment. The market's quite saturated, obviously, as well, with so many players up for grabs. There's so many teams gone pop, so it is difficult at the moment. But the thing is, there's such a talented group of players in Jersey. I think eight or nine of them or something have been picked up already. But there's such a talented group of players. They could do a job at the top level, So I'm sure you will see a lot more of them get picked up. We're actually doing quite well out of it from Ponty. We've got Ben Bonnell back, who's obviously a good player, which is great for us. Obviously, you don't like to see it from Ben's point of view and as Ben's mate, It's not nice to see him lose his job as a professional, and come back to us, sort of thing. But I'm sure he'll get picked up, alongside your likes of Alan Lawrence, who was absolutely outstanding for Jersey, for the last few years. He was definitely one of the best players there in my time. And for him now, obviously, whether he'll pick up a club, we'd love to have him in Pontypridd, but he's almost too good for us in a way. You don't like to say it, but he could play at the top level easily. So I'm hoping these boys and obviously my mates, I'm hoping they all get picked up, really. So time will tell, but it's a difficult time.
Yeah, during the World Cup, we were talking about tier 2 players that we'd like to see at Cardiff, and you've sort of done our job for us there. Sort of talking about the talented crop at Jersey. It's a really sad story, really, and it is a story that's, as you say, reflective of rugby in general. Let's move to Cardiff. I tried to segue. I almost managed it successfully, and then really cut through it horribly. What are your hopes for Cardiff ahead of the season? You've obviously all the talk behind the background last season. Things happened. Let's put it that way, and then you had the summer of upheaval as well. But they are current Welsh Shield holders. What's your hopes ahead of the season?
Yeah, obviously playing there for so long, I'm still a big fan myself. A lot of my mates still play there, albeit they're quite a young squad at the moment. I wouldn't know all of them, having not been there for 3 or 4 years now. But yeah, some of my mates still play there, so I'm still a big fan. I went down and watched a couple of games last year, the Dragons and stuff, against the Dragons and the Derbies and stuff, when I got a chance. So yeah, I really hope they do well. Difficult. What happened last year, and a lot. It was difficult to see, really. Being friends with Thomas and the Di and the family as well. It was actually tough to see, but yeah, I hope they do well. Obviously this year, for my mate's sake and for the club's sake. I know obviously Matt Gerrard being head coach now, know him well, jockey obviously through my time there. So I think he's a great coach. He was excellent when I was there. He was just the attack coach when I was there, but obviously a different role for him now, a bit more responsibility for him, really, and a bit more work for him, if you like. But yeah, I think it's obviously it's going to be difficult with the squad size and a lot of youngsters to compete every week. If there's a number of injuries or whatever. But it'd be interesting to see how they go. I mean, I hope they do well. I think you've got to bleed youngsters through at some time anyway for the future. So why not now when we're struggling to sign boys because of the cash issue? So yeah, it'd be interesting to see. But I think in a couple of years they'll come good, definitely. A lot of young, good talent there. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see.
You mentioned the young talent. Who is there a name or names that you're particularly excited for this season? We've talked about it a few times about the likes of Alex Mann, those boys, for the backs as well, the Beethams, your Winnets. Who are you excited to see this season?
Yeah, definitely. I've actually coached Jacob, which is showing my age now. Beetham at under 18s only briefly. I was bloody forwards coach or something, so didn't have much to do with him. But yeah, I recognise he was a great player at the time. And he's looking good, actually, isn't he? Yeah, so it's interesting to see his progress. Yeah, and the winger as well, Theo, is it? He looks sharp, doesn't he? He looks very sharp. So be interesting to see how he goes as well, because he's got all the talent as well. So yeah, it'd be good to see. Hope Jacob does well, and a lot of the boys as well. Yeah, Alex Mann, I know he was raved about actually when he was in the academy and stuff, and the age grade stuff. So be good to see how he goes as well. But I think the good thing about it now is obviously they're going to get a lot of game time with the small squad, and a lot of players moved on. You know, a lot of the more senior players, the more experienced players moved on. So they're definitely going to get a lot of game time, which is going to benefit them. So yeah, I think it'll be good.
Yeah, it's you mentioned there previously that those players that might have been playing for Ponty will be getting the chance at the regional level. How big a step up is that, really?
Yeah, it's obviously a massive step up. The speed of the game is a lot faster at that level. You know, you've got to be fitter. You're obviously bigger athletes as well. So yeah, it is going to be a massive step up. Don't get me wrong. You know, the Premiership is good. You get a lot of good players in the Premiership, so you get some good games there. But it will be a huge step up for them. You know, physicality wise as well. That's more so the step up really for that age, really, isn't it? At that sort of academy level is the physicality. You know, you're playing against men, big athletes. You know, physical athletes. So that'll be interesting to see. I'm sure they'll be able to cope with the speed and that with their fitness, but it's that physicality that will be the step up and the test for them. But you know, they'll be chucked in the deep end, I'm sure, and it'll almost be sink or swim. But you know, I'm sure a lot of them they'll grow with experience as the season goes on. Really, so yeah, it'd be good to see.
Alan, do you have anything to add?
No, not really. I just suppose just to finish off, obviously the Cardiff were quite heavily impacted by the off-season stuff and the financial kind of side of it, but what the other regions were, I suppose, just where do you see Cardiff finishing in the league, and who do you see, which Welsh regions do you see coming out on top at the end of the season, really?
Yeah, it's interesting, really. I think obviously everyone's in the same boat, aren't they? I think you know, financially speaking, I think a lot of the Welsh clubs are struggling. So it's not just Cardiff. I'm not sure what whether I've heard rumours that Cardiff there's a bit of an investment coming into Cardiff as well. Which, if that's true, you know, I'm not sure how true it is, but will definitely help. So yeah, it's interesting. I think the Dragons actually will surprise. I think this year, to be honest, but I might be horribly wrong. Who knows? Obviously rooting for Cardiff, but I think the Dragons will definitely surprise. You haven't lost too many boys internationally. I think how many is it? 5, is it, something like that? So I think they'll be strong. But yeah, I'd be interested to see. Obviously, hope Cardiff do well. I think with Thomas Williams and Corey Domachowski and the boys back from Wales, I think that'll obviously be a massive boost. But how many games you'll actually get them for is another thing. So obviously with the Six Nations and so on, and they'll obviously be tired now as well from the World Cup. So whether they want to rest them a little bit and not overplay them up until Christmas, which will be another thing. So yeah, again, it'll be interesting to see. But I think the Dragons will surprise this year.
You picked Dragons-ish as your Welsh Shield winners.
You picked
you picked Llandovery as your Premiership winners. To bring this chat full circle, I suppose the only other one to ask you is who's your World Cup winner?
Yeah, that's a question. I think I'm gonna have to go with South Africa and agree with you boys. I think because they just looked so strong last night and physical, didn't they? And they were bringing forwards off after 45 minutes and bringing Snyman on and boys like that. So yeah, they just seem like World Cup time as well. You know, they always seem to come good World Cup time, don't they? Bit like England, unfortunately, they always seem to come good World Cup as well, don't they? But yeah, I think South Africa will just about beat the All Blacks in the final. That's my prediction.
There we go. We've got everything there. Thank you so much, Macauley, for taking the time to talk to us.
No problem. Thanks for having me. Cheers. Enjoy.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Cheers. All the best for the season.
Boys. Thank you, boys. Cheers. Bye.
Bye. Well, that was great to have him on, talking about such a variety of topics, wasn't it?
Yeah, so our first guest, obviously quite excited to speak to a former Cardiff player and someone who's been involved in lots of different levels, I suppose, because you've got the English Championship, the Welsh Premiership. He played for us during the Challenge Cup run as well. So it's always good to get a guest on, speak to different people, because I don't really know what I'm talking about. A lot of the times I just stand in the south stand and disagree with the ref when he penalises us. So it's nice to see someone who's actually got a bit of insight into the game, as in the actual playing of and around South Wales.
Yeah, it's quite a unique perspective, obviously coming from Jersey and all that's gone on there. He's seeing both. He talked there briefly about the Pontypridd side of things, where you're not getting as many academy players. We've talked positively about what this means for the regions, all these young players coming through, how excited we are to see them. But in reality, those are a lot of players that would have been playing for the Premiership. And so the Premiership have got a different thing to work out now. They're bringing players from lower leagues. They're playing with, maybe older players would carry on going. It's an interesting melting pot, really, of players that they've got available.
Yeah, and that's why I kind of wanted to ask about this elite. I always call it Elite Development League, but that's EDL, which is something else. That's a lot of people who live. That's people who live around by me on the border. The EDC, it's interesting him saying you have to earn your stripes, but then you need to develop your own youngsters, but then you need to win games. And that's true at all levels, which is not something I'd really considered, because obviously in the URC, if you just focus 100% on developing youngsters, probably not going to be putting in massive performances. Then if you just focus on winning games and playing your seniors or your first team every time, you're not developing any youngsters. So it's kind of a chicken and egg or double-edged sword, one of them, about what takes priority, and it kind of has to be a balance. And it's going to be an interesting season to see who gets that balance right, and how we all kind of progress through the league. And I think what will be good is a lot of people are interested in individuals and these sort of characters of your Alex Manns or your Kabangas, and seeing the connection with individuals and how they progress. I think you said in the first episode that your ambition is that we finish the season stronger than we started, which has often been a kind of a failing point of Cardiff in the past. So one thing I'm interested in seeing individuals and how they progress, and hopefully that those individuals are finishing the season in stronger positions, so that by the end of the year that we're not talking about. So you say Alex Mann, for example, his breakthrough season, we're talking about him being an established member of the squad, or that's just one example.
Yeah, spot on. And as well, seeing how the melting pot of players works out. And we want some of these players we've bought, we want them to stick around a few seasons. And speaking of new signings, there's a better link for you. Speaking of new signings, there have been a couple for Cardiff this week. Matthew Walbury has signed permanently, previously at Ospreys and Swansea, RFC, and also Max Clark, who's signed on loan from the Dragons. Clark, I watched a fair bit of him at Bath. He didn't have as much game time as I thought he might have at Dragons, actually, through various injuries, and that has been Clark's problem in previous seasons. He's a very talented footballer. That's the first thing, and I'm using that horrible cliche of a rugby player being a footballer, but still, he is, to use that term, he is a talented footballer. He's also a powerful runner at centre. The obvious thing, and I have seen this in some forums, and some fans have been calling the question: why are we signing Max Clark on loan when Willis Halaholo is waiting in the wings? And I suppose, put that to you, Aled. What do you make of that scenario? Is it do you see it as probably an either-or situation, or do you think both can be signed?
I think both could be signed from a rugby point of view. I think we've got the space or the need. Especially, I mean, it's kind of telling that it's a 1 month loan. I think that's quite a short amount of time to contract someone in for, and that potentially, you think, is that cover until Mason Grady gets back? Then he's going to be out again in the Six Nations. Is that cover for Halaholo in terms of sort of fitness testing, because he played for Cardiff RFC at the weekend, so as part of his rehab and some game time for that. So is that a testing of, okay, we'll get this person in, see how how Halahola gets on, and if he gets his fitness back, then we can offer him a contract. I think if the money's there, which is the big if for most of the questions we're asking at the moment, is I think there's plenty of scope to contract both, because centre is a position we're short of, but then you don't want to end up contracting people who aren't getting the game time. I think we're in a position where we have to be really frugal or wise with how we're spending the money. If you know what I mean, would you agree with
that? Yes, I think the one other thing to mention, I suppose, in all this is something that Macauley alluded to, that I think we were both given a bit of a heads up to the other day, was there's a possibility of new investors and more cash coming into the club. Obviously, I don't think either of us know much about that this moment in time. Macauley probably knows more than both of us. But if that is to come in, then you bring in a Halahola that really does lift the spirits of the club, and I think it could be a real possibility going forward. Whether or not that money is also there for stadium repairs, whether it's for academy training and those sort of things, I don't yet know, but those are all things that we'd like to see improve. And certainly the way the club's going towards, I think it's fair to say, with long-term objectives as opposed to short-term, I would like to see those improvements be made. I don't know if you would agree with that as well.
Yeah, so I think my main goal, it's not my money. I think the main goal of the club, I think, needs to be at some point the stadium or the Arms Park redevelopment. I think that could put us on such a strong, sort of stable financial footing for the future that I think we would be less reliant or less sensitive to, say, the whims of the WRU and sort of these last minute financial and contract changes that are quite. This year was particularly severe, but that would just kind of give you a more stability. I think you'd be able to, if you did it right, you'd really be able to set up a strong business just from the site alone, and then the rugby is obviously the cherry on top sort of thing. In terms of the financials for the centres, I meant more about the salary cap. If these investors are, as we hope, ultra mega rich billionaires, we could be turning over a billion a year, but we're not going to. But we could be turning over a billion a year. If the salary cap's there, then you can't sign a super studded lineup. So I think you have to look at which players are value for money, even though you might want to sign your Halaholas and your and have strength in depth. So I think they just need to be really smart with which players they're signing, and the difficulty with is that's where your kind of utility backs would come in useful, but then they're not as specialist and they're often not as high level as your out and out specialist, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I think that's why I think the priority needs to be on club improvements and academy improvements, especially if this salary cap's going to stay. I don't think anyone's going to come in that's going to force that salary cap to change. Is the first thing I should say. So therefore, if the salary cap's not going to change, priorities, therefore, if you're going to put an influx of money in, where does that go? Future-proofing, future development, and those are the two things that I think can be solved this season, and not solved, but improved upon, put it that way. And I think that has to be the area they've got to look at. Yes, we could do more squad depth across all the regions, let's be honest about it, but especially in Cardiff. If it's a difficult one when you talk about value for money players, it's a really difficult concept, because being frank about it, Halahola has missed a lot of rugby over the past 12 months plus, really, probably 2 years if we're being honest. So if you're going to talk about value for money players in that front, he's not value for money. You could say the same about, and is value for money success? It depends what your metric is. Is value for money a player that's turning out every week out and playing, or is value for money a player that, say, a Lee Halfpenny, who doesn't play that many games, but will win you games solely on his own because of his goal kicking? And that'll be the discussions they'll be having to have at board level, etc., etc. To answer, I don't know what the answer is. I think it's probably a mixture of both. Those players that are available to play week in, week out, your club stalwarts, your Josh Turnbulls, who's turning week in, week out, in regardless whatever position, he'll turn up at tight head prop this season, regardless. That sort of player, plus the bit sprinkling the stardust, and that's probably where the regions are lacking this season compared to 10, 15 years ago. If we're talking Ospreys, Galacticos, your Ben Blairs, your Xavier Rushes. And whether or not we're ever going to return to that is another question entirely. But I'd like to think there's a way of developing the club without those star-studded players, but also in the future, hopefully, having a sound enough grounding with enough financial backing that in the future those star-studded players can return.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the long-term goal. I think that we've kind of, you said on the pitch, we're sort of boom and bust. I think off the pitch, we're kind of, well, Welsh rugby generally just kind of rolls from one turmoil and crisis to the next. I think you just want a kind of long-term period of kind of sustained calm. You kind of want, and whether that comes from the WRU with the change in sort of governance that they've had there, whether that comes from, because one thing I really will like to moan about the WRU, and that's a favourite pastime, but we've got the union we have, and I think that just constantly kind of looking at them, and I think if some answers are going to come from them, but some aren't. I think that you kind of be asking your own club to kind of, right, well, this is the situation we're in, so kind of what are you doing about it, if you know what I mean? And I think we kind of need to circle our own wagons at club level first, and that's where I'd rather see a kind of influx of investment go. And then that's what I was saying, that would kind of give you the footing that then hopefully we get a kind of I'd say better direction or strategy from the WRU. But if not, we're not as reliant on these kind of last minute or drastic changes in strategy or financials or whatever. And as Macauley said or alluded to, no matter how bad things have got over the last year, at least we can go to the Arms Park and support Cardiff. You can't say for Jersey, you can't say for Worcester or London Irish. And whilst that was going on in the summer and all of this financial stuff was going on, I was quite anxious that was getting close to a real possibility. It's such a large part of my life, and I'm sure yours as well, that I can't really imagine too much worse of having that kind of taken away. So especially in certain areas, it's Jersey or Worcester, it's a massive part of the community. There's not massive like football in Worcester, for example. It's a rugby town, so losing that, I think, is a massive loss, and I wouldn't really wish that on anyone. So whilst it's been a kind of roller coaster of a year, at least on Saturday we'll pivot on that way. I'm going to be able to go and watch our team at the Arms Park. So on that note, I suppose we should talk about Benetton.
Yeah, that is how you do a link, ladies and gentlemen. Fair play, because I was just about to do the same link, but you did it much more skillfully than I ever could. I've talked about this game a couple of weeks ago. I think last week we talked about it briefly, but still, I feel exactly the same about it. I think, no game is must-win game. People talk about must-win games in this league with no relegation. It's not a must-win game. However, in terms of a platform for where Cardiff can build, it's a huge game. It really is a huge game, and I'm so excited to see how it goes. I think Cardiff can win that game. I think that should be the main aim to do so. I'm still not 100% sure what Benetton will be doing with their players. Macauley there spoke about a 2-week off period for the Welsh lads. Are Italy going to do the same thing? Is probably the first question to ask. Are Italy going to have a 2-week rest period, which would mean they come back next week, which is what we alluded to last week as possibly a hopeful one, and why this could be a really good opportunity for Cardiff to get Benetton when they're slightly weaker. I personally, the way the off-season has gone, I'm going to back Cardiff. I think Cardiff will win this weekend. And I honestly I don't think I'd have said that with as much confidence 3 weeks ago. But then again, I did say the same thing about Wales against Argentina. So don't take my judgments as much. But I do think Cardiff will win this weekend.
Yeah, I think it's so. This first game of the season, it's so up in the air. I mean, Benetton, I looked at their social media. In their off season, they've beaten Ulster, Zebra, and Perpignan, and a team called Rugby Pays or Paisi. I think it's an Italian kind of community team. So apologies if there will be. If there's any Italians listening, I've mispronounced that. So I think they've had a good off season, and we finished one place above Benetton last year. We beat them in the regular season. They beat us in the Challenge Cup quarter final. So I think we've got a good test of where we are in terms of how disruptive the off season has been. Because if they turn up and absolutely batter us, it'll probably be a bit of an eye opener. Actually, we're probably in worse condition than we thought. But I think we've had quite a good off season in terms of the last month or two, as in pre-season, I should say. And yeah, I think if there's a good home crowd support, it's, as you said, it's probably as close to a must-win as we could get, really. And yeah, I think they'll do well. I'm interested to see how they go. I think there's enough threats in the backs, and there's still enough experience in the forwards that we should be able to play how we want to play. And I am going to back them to win. I'm going to say Cardiff by about 5. That's my go-to. If it's going to be a close game, I always go 5. So hopefully it'll be high scoring or a try-fest, as we all like. I have to say, Benetton are my secret team. My sneaky is, if I'm a neutral, I love watching Benetton play. Because they were the underdogs for so long. Then the year the South Africans joined, they didn't win a game in the regular season. Then somehow they got to the final of that Rainbow Cup and they went to Pretoria, and everyone thought they were going to get smashed to bits. And then they won. And since then, it's like a switch has been pulled, and they play with such confidence. They play some good rugby. It's a bit like when you watch Italy and they score some amazing tries. It's hard not to enjoy watching them play as a neutral. Obviously, we won't be neutral on Saturday. So
yeah, Rhino Smith's been a huge influence on that, especially. And I think we look at this weekend. If the weather's good, this could be one hell of a game of rugby. Because there's two sides that like to play. You know, we spoke about Matt Sherritt being the attack coach. Now he's the head coach. I can't imagine he's going to go too far away from an attacking-minded style of rugby. So I'm excited about it. I think all fans should be excited by it. And hopefully, full crowd, start of the season. I think that's what we can hope for. Trying to think, is there anything? Oh, one thing we should note before we go. I don't know if Alan's got a few points, but I definitely do have one, which is Kirby Myhill has announced that he signed for Miami Sharks. And a quick word on him, because he's been a brilliant servant for Cardiff throughout the years. Obviously, got his sole Wales cap against New Zealand, which is not bad going. If you're going to have a sole Wales cap, might as well go against the All Blacks. Alan, what are your abiding memories of his time at Cardiff?
Well, I mean, whenever he came on, you always knew he was going to put in a performance. I think he was such a stalwart of the club for so long that I'm pleased he's gone over there with Rob Evans. Is that right?
Yeah.
So I'm really pleased.
Thomas Cabelli as well, the scrum half for Argentina, is there as well.
Oh, right, yeah. I mean, hopefully it'll be a really good experience for him. I think if anyone's deserved it, it's him. And yeah, it's interesting how the USA League is going to develop, but presumably finishing your career. Not that I want to age him, but you may have many more years left. But going over there for kind of a swan song in Miami is quite a good way to go. They play in blue and pink as well, so he's obviously tried not to wander too far from the Cardiff kind of vibe. But very jazzy kind of strip. If I'm going to adopt a USA team ever, I might have to do it. the Miami Sharks in honour of Kirby.
Yeah, echo that. Brilliant servant. Deserves. If it was his swan song, fully deserves it from a Cardiff's perspective. Did you have anything else you wanted to add, Aled, before we?
Yeah, I suppose I've just seen Josh McLeod has been named as the new Scarlets captain for the season. Cardiff haven't made an announcement yet. I would have assumed it was Turnbull, but I did actually see a post by them saying that they would announce the squad captain in due course. So that leaves me to ponder if it's going to be Josh. If it's not, or basically, who would you have? Would you stick with Turnbull, or would you use this opportunity of kind of a fresh squad with new faces to would you stick or twist, basically?
Trying to think of the names that you could consider. Obviously, Ben did the job captaining in pre-season. Started against Scarlets. He was captain, wasn't he? Can't remember about Ospreys.
But Liam Belcher was the captain for the Ospreys then.
Yeah, I always like a back row captain. I think that's partly because I like a captain that stays on the pitch, the one that's likely to be there for the full 80. I know South Africa do it slightly differently with Khaleesi, but I personally would like. I think it would be a real opportunity to give it to Botham. Botham would be a good name. Maybe on the flip side of that, it'd be good to see him get regular game season and have a season where he starts almost every game. That'd be lovely to see from Botham this season. Maybe that'll be the priority first and foremost. Then maybe next season you look at him as captain. So I've always thought Turnbull's done a brilliant job when it comes to presses. Obviously, Welsh speaking, can do the Welsh, can do the English. He's always a very polite, very courteous, but honest character. And I think his, in terms of interacting with the media and therefore as the conduit to the fans, I think he's always been a very good club captain in that respect. And as we mentioned before, he will turn out in whatever number you put on his back, and he will give you 110%. And I think that's all you want from a captain, really. That's the main thing you want from a captain, is to lead by example. And I think Turnbull has always done that. So if it comes down to, Turnbull losing it or another player who's been there for a while getting the opportunity, I think I'd stick with Turnbull. But if you're going to go for a younger opportunity, I'd like to see both of them have a shot. Don't know if you agree.
Yeah.
Sorry, I sort of
I agree. I really like Turnbull. I think, as you said, he's a real good role model, which I think we really need at the club in terms of some of the cultural issues we've had. He's also quite, as you said, he's speaks well in that when I say he's outspoken, he's not like gobby. I mean, he's with a lot of the stuff with the strikes during, or the potential strikes during the Six Nations, he was quite vocal, but in a good way. He doesn't back down off the pitch or on the pitch. So I think I wouldn't mind seeing him as captain with maybe a vice captain, and then that's how you bring in kind of a younger player, whoever that would be. I'm the same in that I traditionalist in terms of having a captain within the scrum, whether that be second row or the back row, just because it kind of makes sense. You're kind of next to the ref a bit more, I suppose. Whereas I think the weirdest one I've seen was when Stuart Hogg was captain for a while at fullback, and every time there's a decision, he has to run from the outfield to have a chat to the ref. Whereas, I think it's telling that most of the best kind of captains are second row or back rows. I might get flack for that because there's probably some amazing captain I've missed, but it's just kind of that kind of thing.
I was gonna mention the Will Carling, Sean Fitzpatrick, Sean Smith, but let's move on. There's always exceptions to the rule, aren't there, Alan?
Yeah, it's just personal preference, I think. Which just kind of makes sense. And
I agree.
You couldn't ask for a better captain than Turnbull. So whether they offer it to him or not, we'll see. Hopefully, we'll find out this week, and then start seeing some team sheets for the first game of the season. I'm very excited.
Yeah, very excited. I think that's unless we've got anything else to add, because it's been a bit of a longer one, but I think that's the aim going forward, is to have a few guests on going forward. And I think Macauley was really generous with his time, talking about all sorts of different topics. And if we can get more guests on like him, we will endeavour to do so. But thank you very much, I think, for listening to the pod. Alex, do you want to close up, or shall I close up? I was just about to start.
I was going to let you do it, but you're kind of floundering now. So
I thought you could let me flounder. You could just let me just sit here, just waffling away, or you could save me, whichever you want to do. To be honest.
Thanks for listening, everyone. We've really enjoyed this, and it's great speaking to former Cardiff players. If you want to get on the Super Brew URC predictor, that kind of starts on Saturday, obviously. So get your predictions in. I've already locked mine in. I'll probably be wrong, but I've done quite well in the World Cup, so we'll go from there. Hopefully have a good game on Saturday, and fingers crossed we're going to start the season not how we ended last season. We start this season how we started last season.
Thanks very much, and the win.
Thank you for listening to the Cardiff Central podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show. Please subscribe, rate and review wherever you listen to us, as it really helps spread the word. You can find us on all the usual social media channels or email us on welshregionalrugbypod@gmail.com. And remember, whatever the question is, rugby is always the answer.
Sports Social Podcast Network.